Hi, everybody. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be live with y'all today. I'm so excited. I know this is a bit of a surprise, but I've decided that I want to use this Facebook group as my replay area. All right. So, welcome to my replay crew for everything that I'll be doing on Clubhouse. So, for many of you guys already know that I'll be going live on Clubhouse today at 1 o'clock. I will be going live with Kunbi Odubogun, who is the owner of Legally Set. She's an attorney specializing in creative, work for creative entrepreneurs. And today we're going live together and we will be talking about all things relating to, preparing and protecting our wedding businesses for 2021. Obviously, we are still in a pandemic. There's still a lot of considerations to keep in mind, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today on Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse, of course, is an audio only club, but here, because you're part of my inner circle, because you're in the Facebook group, you get to see a little bit of visuals, right? So I will be on Clubhouse. You'll get to listen in on the conversation. If you do want to ask a question, you will have to join on Clubhouse because this is a Clubhouse conversation. But this is just, your opportunity to get the replay, in case you couldn't join live and also in case you want to see something visual and not just audio. All right. So the reason I decided to go with this topic for today, preparing and protecting your wedding business in 2021, it's because, it's at the top of all of our minds right now, right? Like, there's just so much going on right now with, frankly, with everything, but especially with COVID. COVID is still running rampant. Many people are still trying to figure out, like, do I want to make micro weddings like the new norm for my business, etc. There's just so much to consider when it comes to, when it comes to us thinking about 2021. How are we going to prepare for 2021, continue to make sales? How are we going to manage reschedulings and all of that? So that's what we're talking about today, live in Clubhouse. All right, we're talking about preparing and protecting your wedding business for 2021. So stay tuned. I'm about to hit start to start the room, and we're going live. We're about to go live. I'm so thrilled about this. So thrilled to be doing this. Going with my dual technology today. I'm excited about it. All right. Hey, Kunbi. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm hoping Clubhouse doesn't just ruin my entire business. I'm like always on here.
You are always on here.
Excuse me.
I'm not even gonna be like, oh no, girl, I know you're not always. No, you are always on here. When I wake up early in the morning and I'm like, let me see who's on. I'm like, oh,
okay,
Kunbi's
I
in.
promise you, I am not on. I don't know what's happening. Like, I feel like my phone just automatically puts me into Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, like we're just always talking.
Yeah.
But yes, hi, how are you?
I am well. I'm so excited about this. So excited to be hosting my very first room. I've really enjoyed being on Clubhouse. And I've enjoyed learning from other people, occasionally stepping up to ask questions or maybe to add something. Like, this is such a fun platform. Believe it or not, I actually went out and bought an iPad so I can get on Clubhouse because I'm team Android. But yeah.
Okay, there's some, like, I wish you hadn't shared that. Like, it's really embarrassing. What is your problem? Like, you said that you had to even find an iPad. Like, why are you still team Android?
Listen, I'm an engineer at heart, and most of us who are geeks, like we're sold out to the Droid life. So
well, that's why you're talking to an iPad right now, dear. Because I don't even know. Like that geek thing, sure.
Whatevs. But yes, welcome everybody to the room. I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick intro. So obviously we are 2 days away from the new year, 2 days away from 2021. So I thought it was more than time for us to hop in and talk about preparing our wedding businesses for 2021 and also protecting our wedding businesses, right? I think that many of us early on in the pandemic didn't think we would be where we are right now in the pandemic. So if you haven't already put the effort in to protect or prepare your business for 2021, now's the time to do it. for real. Lots of people are still getting engaged over the holidays. Like booking season is still about to be raging, so we wanna go in armed. So that's why we decided to have this room. I'm so excited. Our goal is to keep this room to 90 minutes. So Kumbi and I have a few questions we're gonna go through to start, and then we're gonna open up for Q&A. So our goal is to keep it to 90 minutes. So if you have any friends who are in the wedding business, please ping them into the room, have them come on in because we're not going to be here all day and we have a whole lot to share. So please ping your friends into the room and ask them to come on in. But while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and Kumbi, I will ask you to introduce yourself as well. So my name is Faishala. It's Nigerian. So yes, it is a different name. Faishala, I'm Nigerian. I am a wedding planner and I own a company called Statuesque Events. We're based in the DC metro area, but we service weddings all along the East Coast and other destinations as well. We love planning cross-cultural and multicultural events. We love celebrating people's culture. We love working with our Black brides and grooms. Like that's what we take a lot of pride in, and just displaying that Black love and cross-cultural love. That's something we love to do. I am also a business coach, and I run an accelerator program for wedding planners called Planners Who Profit. You can learn all about it by following me, checking out the link in my bio, etc. And I love coaching wedding planners who are experienced, who have already planned some weddings but are looking to get to that next level of your business, right? You want to profit, right? Exactly what it's called, planners who profit. You want to get to a place where you're profiting, where you're getting into a higher level of the market. And that's the sweet spot over the years that I have found of who I enjoy coaching and who I can help get massive results. So that's what I do, and that's what I focus on. And before I pass it over to Kunbi, I'll say I have worked with her before. She helped me with my legal documentation for my accelerator program. So she's great at what she does, which is why we're hosting a room together. And yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to Kunbi. So Kunbi, please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do, besides sitting on Clubhouse.
Exactly. Sitting in here, I am Kumbi and I live here. I'm joking. But I'm a business attorney based in New York. I have been practicing for over 10 years now, and I am my practice mainly focuses on creative entrepreneurs and event pros like all of y'all, because for the last actually 8 years, I have also been running an events publication called Perfect. It used to be called Our Perfect, and so that is how my life has balanced into this very unique industry that I find myself in now. I am primarily the founder of Legally Set, which is a contract template shop that gives you, ready-made digital download contracts for your creative business. So if you're an entrepreneur, an event pro, influencer, an online business owner of any form, then there's a template there for you. And I'm really excited to do this. Like Faishala said, we have worked together, and event pros have my heart completely. So I'm just always excited to talk about this. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yes, well, thanks so much, guys, for joining. Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, the reason that I'm passionate about doing this at this point is that right now, it's time for us to prepare and protect ourselves for 2021. We've been in a pandemic now for 9 months. We've been shocked and re-shocked at the way that things have been handled and the way where we are right now. But based off of what we've learned, we definitely want to make sure we're preparing ourselves and moving forward and arming ourselves with the things that we need. So I guess Kumbi, I'll start with you. So as part of our teaching, again, we're going to be sharing a few things, then we're going to bring people up for Q&A. So Kumbi, my first question for you is, what clauses should every wedding business have in 2021? If you want to elaborate more on maybe what kinds of contract terms, I'm not sure if I'm using the right words, but what clauses, what kinds of contracts or amendments, etc., should every business, every wedding business have in 2021, given the things that have been going on, and maybe even touch on some of the things we should have always had?
Okay, so very great question. I think moving forward, everything that you're doing now is about protecting your business and protecting your bag in general, for lack of a better word. So for me, and the first thing that I always just advise my clients, and first thing I look for in an agreement anyway, is the payment clause, compensation, looking as to how your compensation is laid out. Like what is the payment schedule, and is the money refundable in any form? Is there a non-refundable aspect of any payments? Is there what kind of payment is due when, and what happens if that payment is not made? Because I think even before we even get into the more noteworthy clauses, that clause needs to be clear from the beginning. You shouldn't be going in anywhere where you find that you're having to refund more than you have worked for, or refund in some cases, like I say to some of my clients, and I know one or two are in here, or refund in any situation anyway. So for me, that's the first thing that I look for in an agreement. And I think as event pros and as people whose livelihood not only depends on the situation, like the condition of the country, the state of the country in some form or the other, it's really important that you have a well outlined payment section that dictates how payment will be made and whether or not any amount of money is going to be refundable. The next thing for me, and of course the one that I'm sure everybody has thought about over the last year, is the postponement clause. This is probably going to end up being the most important clause inside your agreement, since a lot of people are postponing instead of canceling, or postponing, then canceling. So it's really, really important that your postponement clause establishes what happens in the event that a client would like to postpone for one reason or for any reason. Given that we are in an active pandemic, we're in an active situation where there is uncertainty, there's no excuse anymore that you're saying that this is a surprise. So there's no reason why you should be signing in new clients on an old contract that does not dictate what happens if the client has to postpone.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that clause is one, if you haven't yet, it's either you go and get an attorney to review it, or make sure you have an attorney drafted postponement clause, because your postponement clause could literally be the difference between you being in business this year or you being out of business by the end of 2021. And the postponement clause needs to establish, okay, so what happens, within which window can I actually postpone this event? Like, you've heard of clients coming, maybe they've just been waiting to see how the pandemic is going and how the pandemic is playing out. And then you get a text or something 20 days before an event. Well, at 20 days before an event, I would hope that the expectation is that there are no refunds, and that if there's a postponement, a lot of things might have permanently already been set in place that will lead to extra payments being made for a future date. I would also hope that you have something in there that states that both parties have to find a mutually agreeable date before they can move forward with a new date. Because somebody's not just going to tell you that they've picked peak period like August 20th, 2022 or something, and expect that you are available, knowing fully well that not only are you booking 2021 clients, you're booking 2022 clients. So not only are you moving your old clients, but you're also booking new ones. So each date is a premium, and it has to be clear whether or not you are charging a premium for those dates, A, B, or whether or not there will be a postponement fee. These kinds of things, and I spoke with a couple of coaches yesterday, and the same thing I'm going to say to them is the same thing I'll say here. The more detailed and the more direct your contract is about how something is handled, the easier it is for you to contest it and defend it when the time comes, especially as event pros.
Right.
So yes, because obviously, Faisal, you've seen this as well, as an event planner yourself, you will find that as event pros, because you're dealing with something so exciting in someone's life, sometimes it's very easy for you to remove the fact that it's a business and it still has to be run like a business. So having this information there when you're dealing with something so delicate sometimes is really important. So you don't have to start going back and forth and being the mean person or the Grinch when it's time to talk particulars about such a thing.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, I think that is, that's essential. I know that you have, or at one point anyway, at one point, I'm not sure if it's still free, but there was a rescheduling clause. It's still free?
Yeah, it's still free.
Okay.
I have a free version, and obviously I also do have a paid version that's very, very detailed, but the free version is amazing, and you can actually just grab it if you type in freeamendment.com on in your browser. It's freeamendment.com, like FREE amendment. You can get it for free, and that's a very simple, straight to the point rescheduling agreement that you can use to have that in place, because that's actually a very good point and a good segue. Another thing about your postponements, yes, you are postponing based on the terms in your agreement, but you should have that amendment in place to amend to the new date. Because these things, a lot of things I have seen over the last 10 months of this, nightmare, is that I've seen people making these changes and doing all of these things by through the most random avenues, like text or word of mouth or anything like that. You have to remember that we're literally in a rolling situation, and you do not want to leave anything down to he said, she said.
Right.
And also for your own peace of mind, document everything. And that's the reason why you need a rescheduling amendment, because then you have it in clear terms what the details and changes to the original agreement are. If you're not having that, if you're not having the wedding on that date anymore, establish when this new contract has been amended to, and also establish how much, if any, changes are going to be made to the original terms of that agreement. For instance, are you going to be charging a rescheduling fee? For planners who have already done the work and done everything, are you going to be charging something to basically accommodate for the time and extra effort you'll be doing? For florists who have already created the products and maybe it might end up being lost goods, are you charging for the additional work that may be done in the next year? Also, if the couple is scaling down in some form or the other, maybe you are scaling down from like a 300-person wedding to a 100-person wedding. What does that mean for the changes in fees? Are you going to have to accommodate for new styling, a new design or something? Establish those terms in your rescheduling amendment so nobody says he says, she says, and it's very clear what the expectations are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that is obviously it's spot on, coming from you, but I mean, that's a big one, right? Because with a lot of clients, you have to lay out what rescheduling means for certain clients. And I mean, honestly, I have some clients who are pretty amazing. Even though their weddings got rescheduled, they didn't like expect like that we're gonna start from scratch, redo the whole design plan, and just kind of like, kind of be going back and forth. So we kind of had those agreements. But for me, I agree with you. Like, just in general, I tell my clients all the time, and even when I'm coaching other people, if it's not written down, it's not real. So a lot of times, and written down like in an email or like, for me, the only things I really care about is like what's in email, timelines, and if it's something related to a contract, like what's in the contract. If it's not any of those things, then it's not real. Text messages, and when people start sending me screenshots of text messages and stuff like that, or he said, she said, it's just like, for me, I'm just like, there's no way to prove this, and we're gonna waste more time trying to figure out who said what 6 months ago, than having it written down. I know that a lot of times with us, we try to be, as creatives, we're always trying to be so personal and like, okay, just text me or just WhatsApp me. But then when things get confused, it's like you're spending triple the energy just trying to figure out what was agreed upon in the first place, and it's just not worth it. Like, that's not high value work for us as event professionals. So it's really important for us to really like put the effort into just being organized about what we're asking for, being organized about what we offer, what people's options are up front, and really thinking things through. And I think another thing that comes with that, just from a, obviously everything you said is right, but I'm just thinking more from like, putting it into practice, is not feeling the need to give an instant response to everything. So someone asks you a question, because I think that this is, I mean, I don't give an instant response pretty much to anybody. And I know it sounds crazy, but I always give a complete response. And I think that that's something that causes people to generally respect me, because yes, I may not give you a response in 3 minutes, but when I give you a response, I'm going to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to get there, A, B, and C, right? So I think that for us, we have to take the time. Obviously, Kunbi threw out a whole lot of questions, right? Like, what happens? How far in advance can you reschedule to, this and that? Those things take a little bit of time to think through and to commit to. So you have to think, like, that
amazing.
It's the most important thing we have to do as business owners. We have to think so that we can actually guide people and not just like let things happen to us and then complain and vent in Facebook groups after the fact. Like, we have to be able to think about what we want and not just what we want, what we think is fair, and not what's going to be the best for the client, and like take that time to think, right? And really just jot down, this is what I think I want, and then of course consult with a lawyer and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. How do I put this into the legal terms, or get a template, or that matches up with what you're looking for. So sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was just trying to get
Oh
it up.
no, 100%. I was just completely agreeing. I think that that's strategy for anybody, even across any industry. Like you have to remember that with what you're doing, there's so many things and so many little pieces in place, especially in this period where you're already in postponement mode and like for lack of a better word, chaos. So there's a lot of things that come into play and a lot of decisions that you might have even forgotten in your head. So trying not to say yes or no right away is the best way to go. Because there's one thing we say in law all the time. There's something like an informed response. Like basically an informed response means in our case, that means you've consulted your lawyer, so you know nobody's doing rubbish for you. But basically, more than anything else, an informed response means you have all the facts and you have all you have everything in place before you respond.
Yeah.
So taking a beat to at least look, make sure that make sure you're not double booking, make sure that you're not emotionally responding. Most importantly, because clients will do that to you, and then you're saying, "Oh yeah, sure, we can move it to August 22nd," but guess what? August 22nd might be the day that you were waiting for another person to respond for a different event.
Right.
So taking a step back and giving, like Faishala said, what was it? I loved the complete response is ideal and very important moving forward in 2021.
Yeah, it's for me. I like the complete response over the instant response because the funny thing is that it'll save you time. You know, when you respond to someone and say, "Hey, these are your options. You can go with A, B, or C." It's written out, and then give them time to think about it. And I also don't need an instant response from you. You can think about it for 2-3 days. Talk to your husband, pray about it, whatever you need to do, so that when you come back to me, we're on the same page, and we're not just ping ponging for weeks and weeks about what you want to do, right? So that's just my approach in everything, and I think that's really important because I mean, I'm not sure. We're going to bring more people up to the stage to ask questions in a second, but I'm sure, like, as you were going down the list of, oh, what happens in this case or that case, I'm sure some people are like, what? Like, this is a lot. And it's like, yeah, it is, you know, and which is why you need to take some time to sit down and think, how am I going to respond in these situations? What are some scenarios that could come up, and what do I want, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to add there. Okay, I do have another question for you. At what point should I customize a contract versus use a template, right? So is it okay if I customize my own template, contract from your template library? At what point should I hire a lawyer to create a custom contract or to customize one for me? Like, what would you recommend, especially, given everything happening in 2021?
Well, I think that obviously I'm going to say it first now, just because it's always a great idea to consult with an attorney, obviously, because everybody's needs are different, right? Obviously, with legal templates like the ones that I have, they're created with the industry professional as a whole, like this facet of the industry professional, and created specifically for them with their needs in place. Like each contract is created with and actually supervised by somebody in that industry specifically, so that everything is kind of done. But the whole idea with a template is like it's a general take on what we believe you need to be legally set. If you have custom needs, you can go through it, and that's the whole idea. So you purchase the template and then you look through it and see if there's anything that you feel like could protect you even further, especially when you speak with your attorney. And another thing is, I find that with event pros, you are your biggest experience because your needs evolve. But and my favorite phrase to say is when your needs evolve as the clients show their real self. So every time you have a client relation, like you have a client incident, you realize that, you know what, this is another, I call it my no list, which is a whole discussion about the shit that you will not tolerate when you contract with a client. Like, so for instance, I think maybe the first or second time you find yourself cleaning up when you're not supposed to be cleaning up, or holding somebody's head when they're throwing up in the bathroom, you realize that, you know what, this is not my job. And then all of a sudden you're adding these limitations or your no-nos into your contract. So these are the things that, of course, create a custom situation. Or if you find yourself, especially when you're dealing with high net worth clients, and you find like your payment schedule needs to be tweaked a little bit, or you need to have more strict boundaries in your situation, then I always think that as you evolve and as you grow as a professional, you should seek the assistance of an attorney, at least even just showing them to sign off on your new agreement, because your needs will always be custom. But like I said before, we have created this with event pros in mind, like literally event professionals, like what is it that you're going through? And there's been a lot over the last year, so those have been put in there. So anybody that has purchased, I know at least 2 people that have purchased the contract in this group. Anybody that has purchased the contract will find that, okay, wow, they even thought about this. But of course, I can never ever not tell you to not consult an attorney because, ooh,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That sounds
yeah.
awesome. That's definitely excellent advice. I know for myself, like I said, I work with Kunbi, and I did
Yes.
ask for a custom contract. So
Mm-hmm.
we went with the hybrid. Went with
Yes, we did
with
because we
what,
created it for you.
yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
template, and then customizing it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it really just comes down to your
Your
comfort,
needs.
wanting to
Mm-hmm.
protect yourself, as opposed to just downloading something from the one of these free contracts on the internet. But you definitely want something specific to you so that you actually understand it. Frankly, you can't really enforce it if you don't even understand it. A
100%.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have contracts that they don't even know what it says, so you have to understand it and know what it says to enforce it. um, okay, okay.
100%. I
Yeah.
think you literally just answered the question for me because I think it's also important. There's no excuse anymore for you to not know and understand the terms of your agreement.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you would find that a lot of people had problems with their contract and had the primary reason for contract issues during this time was the fact that you yourself didn't even know what you had in your contract. So
Mm-hmm.
half of the time I was reviewing contracts that were literally like clause to clause, they were fighting with each other.
Yeah.
So like you would have contracts conflicting with each other inside there because people have copy paste their contract from the internet with the idea that, okay, no, well, you know what, this person had this in their contract, I'm just going to copy paste it here. But the truth is, each contract, like I always say, it's literally an extension of you and your business. It's literally about you and your product. It's an extension and a living extension of your business. So anything that you change or anything that you just touch on from somebody else sometimes isn't going to work with actually what your business is about. And it's very dangerous. And it's the reason why it's really important that you have a cohesive
Mm.
agreement. And which is the reason why what Faishala did was great with me. Like when she came in for custom help outside of the contract is because she wanted something that was 360 her, like completely her. And so it's really important that you have that in mind as well. Like, so at least reading your contract and digesting it and knowing that, okay, this clause works for me. This clause works for me. Why is this clause here? Maybe find out. Otherwise, then you're just going in blindly and then can't even have like a clear conversation with your client about the terms. And guess what? One thing that you can expect in 2021 is client pushback, period. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be much more critical about where they're putting their money. And they're going to be much more critical about terms because they want to make sure that they have an out as well because of the pandemic, because of what happened in 2020, because it was so shocking and because there were so many postponements. People are going to want to negotiate their contracts further. So
Right.
you have to be able to stand in your contract and be able to defend the terms of your agreement or at least explain it to them so that both of you are on the same page.
Right. Yeah, I think that's excellent. I think that's excellent. Like, amazing. All right, so I'm going to reset super fast. I'm going to reset the room. So we are talking about preparing and protecting your wedding business for 2021. So we're talking about the legal side and also preparing for 2021, right? Like, in addition to protecting ourselves, we also want to continue making sales. Let's be frank, right? We want to be able to get the sale, push our services and all of that. So I just want to encourage you guys, please ping your friends, all your industry friends, anyone who's in the wedding events industry or creative even outside of it. A lot of us could use it, so please ping your friends into the room. We just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to chat with us. My name is Faye Shala. I'm a wedding planner. I own a company called Statuesque Events, based in the DC metro area, and I'm also a coach. I run an accelerator program for wedding planners called Planners Who Profit, and it's for experienced wedding planners who are looking to profit and increase their profit, and move into a higher market. I'm also joined by Kunbi, who is as you can already hear, an awesome attorney with a heart for creative professionals and especially wedding professionals. She has an entire contract shop of all kinds of clauses, and contracts that you can use in your business. One of them that she mentioned is free, which is the rescheduling clause. So please make sure that you follow us both. Check out the link in her bio to access the contract shop and the link in mine to learn more about our accelerator program. And I also have a free challenge coming up in 10 days. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure you hit the link in my bio, sign up for that. And we'll be chatting more in 10 days, right? It's a challenge to start off the year right. Now, I wanted to switch a little bit into preparing for 2021. But I do know that we had one person raise their hand. If you don't mind just waiting just 1 second, I just wanted to answer one quick question before we hop into the Q&A formally. But yeah, one question that I get a lot, just from those who come to me who are interested in coaching, etc., is, do I have to sell only micro wedding packages, or do I have to sell only discounted packages now that we're in the pandemic? And is it possible to sell regular price packages? Is it possible to raise my rates, etc., during the pandemic? And I just want to share my perspective on that. I think absolutely yes. I think absolutely yes. But just keeping in mind that people, like Kunbi said, people are a little bit more critical. They want to know where their money is going, etc. So yes, I know that a lot of times we talk about charging our worth and raising our rates, but you also have to present yourself a certain way. You've got to be able to answer questions. For me, I can speak for myself and say that I've gotten clients because of the pandemic. Earlier in the year, spoke to a couple of clients, on sales calls, and they're like, "Oh, we really love your work, but the typical, it's too expensive, I'll do it myself," which is cool. I don't argue with people about that, because yeah, I get a lot of inquiries, so I'm always just trying to find my clients. But I've had a lot of people kind of circle back as the pandemic continued to rage on and say, you know what, I can't navigate this by myself. Like, I actually need someone to help me to navigate through this. And I think that the interesting thing is that the pandemic is actually helping people to see the value of quality wedding vendors. So when you can present yourself, when you can articulate your value and how you're going to help people, not only just to have a pretty wedding, but also help them through logistics, through changes, through chaos, and really inspire confidence, which is literally all in your ability to notice patterns in your business and as you're servicing clients, and also your ability to communicate it, right? So that's why I have a whole accelerator program. It's all about helping people to communicate their unique value, their unique positioning, so that a client can understand. Because the thing is that we, for the most part in the wedding industry, we're serving clients who've never done it before. So you literally have to be able to speak in terms that they understand. And I find that a lot of times we don't know how to do that. As wedding professionals, we just say, oh yeah, we'll help you through everything. But what is everything, right? Like, what is the everything that they need help with? Is it just finding vendors? Can't they just go on your Instagram and pull the vendors that you tagged in your last post and just use those same people? Like, what is it? Like, and I think that the truth is that yes, you can raise your rates. You can still sell your regular price packages. I mean, I've sold multiple domestic destination wedding planning packages during the pandemic, and there are people who sought me out for my specific niche, which is cross-cultural weddings. So it's very doable. I think there are a lot of people who are preaching doom and gloom of like, oh my gosh, like all people are doing is rescheduling and all people are doing is canceling and having micro weddings. But that's not everyone, because again, the laws are different state by state as to size of weddings. I'm sure that by the time summer comes, some states will be back to like weddings of 200, 250, etc. So I do think that it's all about your positioning and your ability to communicate your value in what you do, and answer questions, and frankly, to address the elephant in the room when you're on sales calls. That would be like my biggest gem when it comes to selling, right? Don't just talk to a client as if we're not in a pandemic while you're in the sales call with them, or while etc. Like, let them ask questions. Some people are, for whatever reason, are nervous about asking questions, but let them ask questions and say, hey, how are you handling rescheduling? Like, what happens if I have to reschedule? And that goes back to knowing what's in your clause. Like, so if it's in your mind, you already know what you put in your contract about your rescheduling agreements. You can say, hey, yeah, I allow clients to reschedule up to a year in advance, right? So if you book me for August, you can reschedule up until the following August, for a $500 fee at no additional fee, or maybe a Saturdays at an additional fee, but weekdays are less, or whatever the case is, whatever your terms are, you can explain it so people don't feel like they're signing and then are going to get hit with random charges or surprises later, right? Just being able to explain things in layman terms. Because one thing I did mention yesterday when I was in Kunbi's room and we were talking to coaches, but the sad thing is that a lot of people don't really read their contracts. And as we mentioned today, including those who are sending the contracts. But so it's even worse on the client side. So sometimes like your ability to just explain it off the top of your head, it helps people to say like, this person's a true professional. Like, she has processes. She knows exactly what's going to happen in this case or that case. Like, I've had this conversation with so many people, and people always leave and say, wow, I feel relieved because I understand what's going to happen in every case, whether I can have this 150 person wedding, whether it has to be 50, or whether I elope. Like, I understand the options at every single stage. I understand the decision points and all of that, and I leave relieved. And it's amazing talking to people about having to reschedule their wedding and the unknown in the future, and causing people to leave that conversation leaving relieved. And it all comes from your ability to just be clear on what you are going to do, how that's going to help them, and at what point you're gonna, for those who are my actual clients, what point we're gonna actually make the decision, right, of whether or not you're gonna reschedule. That inspires confidence. And I know for myself, I consider myself to be someone, like, not only do I charge my, I would consider high ticket for my services, I also pay people high ticket for things, because I don't like a whole lot of back and forth. I don't want to be anybody's experiment. Like, I like things to just be done well. So for me, I'm looking for the same thing when I'm speaking to people. And I'm sure all of you guys can, if you really think about it, for anyone who's like a homeowner, or anyone who maybe you are looking for a home, you're working with a realtor, or maybe even like when it comes to something even like your hair. Imagine when you're speaking to someone and you're looking to hire them for something you've never done before, or something that you've never worked with them about. You're looking to see, like, does this person know what they're doing, or are they just kind of saying fluff to get my attention? And I think that your ability to just communicate and give that value and let people know, like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I have clear terms, I have clear, processes that'll help you, decision points. We don't need to, like, be on a call every single day for 5 hours to determine whether or not we're going to reschedule. This is the point when we're going to do it, and all of that. It helps to inspire that confidence, and it helps to make the sale. I mean, like I said, I've also raised my rates this year and continued to book, right? I raised my rates largely because I don't know how many more weddings I even want to do next year, but people have continued to book, and it's been great, and they've enjoyed the service because of that clarity. People want you to lead them, right? So I think that, and it's now more than ever, they want you to lead them through everything that's going on right now. And I think that that's actually elevating the value of us as service professionals right now. I don't know that many people who are looking for month of coordinators or wedding management in this particular situation that we're in right now, right? Most people are like, I need a planner because there's too many changes, and I'm going to need to make decisions in advance about my event or my wedding. So for me, for myself, I've raised my rates, booked more clients. For those that I've coached, they've raised their rates, they've booked more clients, because people are still getting married. They're never going to stop getting married. And especially now with the vaccine and everything, like, people are really planning for that grand event. And I think that's an important thing to always keep in mind. I think that we do need to protect ourselves. And I know that in a lot of the event professional rooms, we talk a lot about canceling events and pivoting into other fields, which is, pivoting into other fields is great. It's something that if you have a passion in something else, it's something that you should do as well. But don't just give up on weddings, because, 2021 is going to be a big year. And once, COVID is really under control, everything's just going to explode. And it's just going to become a matter of whether or not your business is ready. So that would just be my 2 cents on preparing yourself. Like, really, like, this is the time to really do that inner work of what is the value that I bring beyond just, oh yeah, I have a good network of vendors. Like, what, and being able to actually communicate that, right? As a wedding professional. So that was just one thing I wanted to share. I want to remind everybody, if you do have a question, please hit the raise hand button. I know some people might be new. If you have something to ask, or if you have something you'd like to share, please hit the raise hand button about preparing or protecting your wedding business for 2021. And while people are doing that, I do have one other question.
Hey, Nicole.
Oh, hey, Nicole. She's back. Hi, Nicole. Can you go ahead and unmute, and you can ask your question?
Sorry, guys, I had to call quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Kunbi. Hi, Vishola. Nice to meet you, Vishola. So, Kunbi, I think the answer is going to be yes, but I want to ask anyways. I have a lot of my clients who are in a situation where, for instance, I started working with them in 2018, and now they postponed all the way to 2021 or 2022. So my question is, because of the pricing change and difference, do you suggest we put that into our main contract as well as an amendment? What are you suggesting regarding people changing pricing just because of postponements?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I think that goes back to what I was saying about, like, not having, you shouldn't really even be using the same contracts beyond like 2020, and sending out new ones is always a great idea. Obviously, some clients might say, oh, we already signed one, and then you send an addendum with that listed in there, like any further date change will be subject to updated rates, for instance, or will be subject to contractors' updated rates, or you could charge a flat fee for it. In general, what I find with my clients is that they're more comfortable even just having it in their original contract, stating that postponements are limited to 12 months, and anything beyond the 12 months range would be subject to an X fee or an updated contractor rates for that year. And also even stating that a further date change beyond that, an additional date change after the initial date change, would either be subject to an updated agreement, or will be subjected to an updated amendum and updated fees. Because I think that's one part that we're all missing, so that you don't find yourself having to do addendum upon addendum upon addendum, especially when it comes to increased rates. Stating it in your contract from the beginning that they will be subject to contractors' updated rates is always a great idea.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and get that money, girl. There's no reason why you should be working with 2018 rates. We're in 2020, and you deserve a premium.
Preach.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Also, Nicole, she left. But also, if anyone else has a question, please raise your hand. We'd like to bring you up on stage. And also, if you have anything to add, it's an open space. You can come on up and share. I had a question. Oh, go ahead.
You have a question, Faishala. Go ahead.
No, I have a list of questions. So, but go ahead with what you were going to say.
No, because I was going to mention, because we were talking about clauses originally. So one thing I didn't finish the clause list, because beyond the postponement to your cancellation, also it has to be very clear. It has to be super clear as to how you are handling a cancellation, because like I said, some people will postpone and then cancel, or some people will cancel from the beginning based on something or the other, or decide like, you know what, it's not worth it anymore to keep postponing, or it's not worth it anymore for me to have to wait till 2021, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel. And in that case, for me, it's really, it has to be, your cancellation clause could literally dictate whether or not you're going to get money back, how you need to be notified, if you are going to be returning any money, or if everything is considered work performed based on where, at the point of which they are canceling and for the reason they are canceling. And then letting them know that they would not be receiving any amount back, or they'll be receiving a prorated amount back, is really important, so that you don't find yourself. I have seen clients who, like, the client will cancel, like, let's say 30 days out, or like maybe even less than 30 days out, and then will still be trying to ask for a full refund. No, there's no reason why your contract should be quiet about that language, because that is something that you don't want to even have to start defending in court. You shouldn't have to even go that extra step. Like you were talking about, Faishala, systems are so important. Part of the reason why your contract is there is to make your life super easy. So it should be clear whether or not a cancellation is possible. Obviously it is. If they decide they don't want to have the wedding anymore, here is how much you'll be getting back, or here is a nice flower because you're not getting anything back. So either way, it needs to be documented. And also, if they are canceling and for any reason at all, honestly, for any reason, like, no, there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't even send them a cancellation agreement to tie up that loose end. If the contract doesn't complete naturally, like by the performance of the event, for any reason at all, you should have a termination agreement in place, a cancellation agreement that establishes that this relationship has now ended. This is how we're ending. We're parting ways, blah, blah, blah. There will be no disparagement. The terms of this termination is confidential, and then you call it a day. Those things are really important now, especially because clients will switch up on you. Nobody is beyond that. People will switch up on you differently, and you find out that all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, you canceled, but I canceled the wedding, but where's my money back? And you're like, okay, so but we decided you weren't getting any money back. And this is why the termination agreement is also important.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Crystal, what is your question for us? So say your name, where you live, all that good stuff, and your name. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we lost her.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wait for her to come back.
Okay.
All right, so like I said, I've got a whole list of questions. Let me reset the room really quickly. So we're talking about preparing and protecting your wedding business for 2021. So what that means is how do we, prepare to continue to run our businesses, make sales, make money in 2021, and how do we protect ourselves, protect our money, our and our reputations, etc. in 2021. So my name is Faye Shola. I'm a wedding planner, owner of Statuesque Events. I'm also a coach, and I run an accelerator program for experienced wedding planners called Planners Who Profit. And I'm joined by Kunbi, who is an attorney, and she does specialize in creative entrepreneurship, and has amazing templates for wedding and event professionals in her contract shop called Legally Set. She is also the mastermind behind Perfect, so the publication Perfect as well. All right. So, Kumbi, I have a question. I think this is something we could probably both maybe just have a discussion on. So, it's something that's come up a few times. So, one of my clients rescheduled multiple times, and I'm getting frustrated, and I want to charge more. So, how do I protect myself against endless rescheduling in the future? I mean, I know that you've talked about having a rescheduling clause and making it clear. Let's say this person hadn't at the onset said, oh, hey, if you want to reschedule, each time you reschedule is going to cost this or whatever. What should they do now that they're in a situation of, I've rescheduled 3 times and now this person wants to do it reschedule to like December 2022, and I can't give them the same current rate. What do I do now?
Okay, so for that one, it still goes back to that same conversation about this is why it's so critical to have a fire rescheduling clause from the beginning, because it should let them know that first of all, it's limited to a single rescheduling, or you can, in some cases, people are like, we'll permit reschedulings, but it has to be within the 12-month period from the original event date. In a situation where this person doesn't have that, that's why an amendment is so essential. And which, like I said, you guys, as I've mentioned before, I have a free amendment I'm giving out. So it's just go to freeamendment.com and you can grab it there. But this is exactly why, because then you can put anything else that you want to amend the terms from the original agreement. So even in that amendment, you can state that this the change is limited to a single change, a date change, and any change further than that or in addition to that will be subject to a termination of the agreement, and clients will not receive and both parties will no longer be liable to each other. There'll be a cancellation of liability, and there'll be completion of the terms of the agreement, or any further changes is subject to a new agreement. Because you shouldn't, that's another thing, you shouldn't just keep adding band-aids onto an initial agreement. It's exhausting, and it's a way for you to find holes in your agreement. So having that terminate at one point or the other, don't keep this on an endless loop, especially if you want to be able to charge more money. So let them know, or you can even put it in there, like I said, that an additional change will be subject to X fee. That way you're able to now patch that on, and maybe honestly even curb this endless amendments and changes, because you have to remember that each client is each booking you have is another booking that you can't have. So for that reason alone, keeping yourself on an endless loop of date changes could then end up being a very exhausting game to play. So having it there and letting them know that, okay, any additional changes will be subject to this, and then we'll render everything, and then you can also even in that also render all previous payments non-refundable because they've already been paid. And in exchange, in consideration for the movement of the date, you are now, in consideration for the movement of the date, the date that you are permitting this client to move to, client understands that this is now non-refundable. Right. And then any further date changes will be subject to X fee.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that. I think that is excellent. I mean, I think another thing, I mean, this kind of goes into just rescheduling in general, like rescheduling with lots of vendors and, I guess depending on certain clients. I have a wedding that was supposed to take place 5 days after the world like officially shut down. Obviously COVID was looming, but I was really hoping we could get through this wedding and we didn't. And yeah, so everybody was booked and paid. And so rescheduling that wedding, we had to reschedule it twice now. the client got pregnant, so, and then they live in a different state from where the wedding was taking place, so it was very understandable reasons, but we've had to, you know, reschedule it, and there's just, you know, a lot going on there. And yeah, it's a lot of work, you know, rescheduling with a lot of clients, a lot of vendors is a lot of work because everybody's availability changes daily, and it's hard to find that perfect space. So we kind of have to protect ourselves, you know, against that. So, man, okay, I think we lost someone, so I'll wait for her to come back up. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand, and we'll bring you on stage so that you can speak, and ask your question. All right, so we've got someone. All right.
Guys,
hey, Ronnie.
Hi, Faye. Hi, Kunbi. I love you girls.
Hi, Ronnie.
You guys are hilarious, especially Kunbi. you're a straight shooter, like you don't even play. But my question is, all right, so a lot of contracts were obviously sent out before COVID hit. So what do we do? Do we get amendments and send it back to the client and say, hey, we need you to sign this because of COVID and the changes that have happened? Or how do you navigate that? Because a lot of the questions that were asked, it's more like you should have had your contract ready from the beginning, but because this was all new to all of us, it's like, how do you move forward?
Yeah, I have a comment about that. So one thing that changed for me after I kind of already mentioned rescheduling in my contract, but I didn't have a COVID liability clause, right? Basically saying that you can't sue me if you or anybody at your wedding catches COVID, despite our best efforts and all of that, because we can't control it, just like the rest of the country can't control it. So that's something that I did resend to clients. I did explain that I'm updating the agreement, and I need them to accept it basically in order for me to show up at their event, right? Because I need them to understand. I mean, granted, the weddings that we did this year, for the most part, were smaller, but I still needed them to understand that you can't just come back and blame me for, random stuff. It's not my fault if someone just chooses not to wear a mask, or if someone, is asymptomatic and spreads COVID. So I think that there's other things we have to protect ourselves against, even beyond like the rescheduling. That was the first thing that I chose to amend in my agreement, and that was something that nobody would have had pre-COVID, right? So I think that's kind of why I wanted to hop in and just say, like, that was something that I sent. I allowed my clients to have time to think it through, but basically just sending it to them and basically saying, I am not able to show up unless you kind of sign this, and explaining that was the only part, that was the only thing that was the only part that was amended in the contract. I didn't really have any pushback or anything there. I've already explained to them that we're going to be wearing masks to protect the clients. We're going to have minimal to no contact on people, explain the safety measures that are going into place. But despite best safety measures, it obviously was an evolving situation. The first wedding we had this year was in July, so it's like, I still don't think we 100% know every way that this disease is transmitted, honestly, but definitely then we didn't. So it's just like, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best. We've already discussed that, but no matter what, like, I don't want, because that's something you want to protect yourself against too. You don't want someone to get sick and pass away. And I mean, I think we've all seen these stories in the news where they decide that this wedding was a super spreader, or this funeral or this backyard party was a super spreader event. And it just kind of happens and goes away. But then I never really hear of if there was a planner or if there was a vendor, what ended up happening in that case. And if someone decided to go after that vendor. So for me, I think that, and I mean, it's hard because the answer to this question relies on your clients being reasonable people. But I do think that, if you can explain, like, not just throw an extra 2-3 pages on your contract and say, hey, I need you to sign this, but explain, these are the clauses that I've added and this is why it's important. I don't know. I just think that's kind of like the front end, like, practical side to get people to understand, because again, some people, their eyes just glaze over once they see all those words and they're not going to read it in detail. So the fact that you just explained, these are the 3 things I'm adding, this is why it's important, and yes, it's protecting me, right? But this is why it's important, and I kind of need you to sign it for me to show up. I think that's that's a good way to present it. And I think Kumbi, you may have touched on like the scheduling and cancellation too, but if you have anything to add or correct from what I said, please do.
So yes, so I've had like most of my clients this year have had to send out new agreements or at least send out amendments. And what Faishola said is right. Like you basically just send it out as a notice of updated agreement or notice, or you know what I mean, like notice of changes first of all, and then just break it down to them. Make it cute and flowery as much as you want to, but still make sure that the shit is legit. Because for instance, one of my clients, she's in the audience, I won't mention, but she sent that out, and she sent out a notice basically letting them know that this is how she was going to be handling the COVID situation. And the reason why that was important is because, like you said, nobody was expecting this, right? So this was a response, basically just letting everybody know what's up. Like this is the state of event, and here is the updated agreement with this information. In terms of the rescheduling, and that's exactly how you can do it. If for me, obviously, I think it's always better to have a new agreement presented to them. That way you can terminate the old one and then just have new terms clear as day for everybody. But you will find that sometimes clients will push back because they want to keep their original agreement, in which case you can just do an amendment and let them know that this is your policy on this.
Right. And in cases where, let's say, if you're a floral designer where the prices of roses and other flowers don't always stay constant. So let's say you had agreed on a fixed amount of money a year out, and now with COVID having to schedule it, let's say a year or two, later, obviously there's an inflation that's going to occur with like the prices of flowers and things like that. So being that you already agreed to a fixed amount, and with the increase that you would have to incur because of inflation, do you then advise your clients through an amendment document that, look, you guys would have to pay maybe X amount of money more just because of that natural inflation?
Well, that one, see, now that depends on your agreement, because like, I mean, if it's a natural, you want to be careful there in terms of deviating in terms of your agreement, the original agreement. So that part, obviously, it's more of a nuanced statement, because you can't just say, oh, this is the updated thing and this is what it is. It has to be something that is permissible based on your agreement. Otherwise, you will find pushback that someone's going to be like, hey, this is not what we agreed to, and then you just went, and then it could be a whole thing. So obviously it depends on the client. I always think it's really great to have these conversations first of all with them, maybe over the phone or like in discussion, and then put these terms down in writing as to whatever it is that you agree. So maybe you can explain to them the backdrop in terms of why this is getting updated. Obviously, for instance, like if your contract is silent at the moment as to if there's going to be room for any kind of inflation or like material changes and things like that, then you can't really come and say that that's a new thing. Obviously, like at the same time, depending on your statement of work or depending on your schedule, and in fact that maybe your contract does say that the fees are variable depending on the price of certain things, or like for instance the price of goods and materials, then that's a different case, because all you have to do then is just update that schedule and send it to them for approval.
Okay, Kumbi, I have one more question, and I'll just send you a DM directly. It's about your templates. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks, Faye. Thanks, Kumbi.
No problem.
Thanks, Ronnie.
No problem. So, Kumbi, I guess piggybacking on that question though, what would you recommend for wedding professionals such as caterers, maybe venue owners who also provide food, floral designers, and vendors who are providing items that do incur inflation. So I understand that for contracts that were already made, you can't just you can't just change the price. Like for me, like the client that I mentioned earlier that we had to reschedule because she got pregnant, whatever, the wedding is essentially going to be almost 2 years from the original date. So what you said is what they did. They did send us a new contract, and it does mention that the price of the food is subject to change, right, because of inflation, which the client understood. There wasn't really a lot of pushback about that. And the interesting thing is that they didn't even necessarily commit to an amount. It's just more of a trust thing of saying, hey, what chicken costs in early 2019, early 2020 may not be the same as the end of 2021. And that was something they understood. But as far as now sending new contracts, because I think that now people are starting to understand that, COVID is going to be here for a while, and I don't want to just postpone my wedding indefinitely. Like people are really like ready to get married, like and book vendors, right? So what would you recommend for someone sending out a brand new contract for one of those kinds of services? That relies on the cost of goods sold?
For those seats, I was speaking my response initially was to Ronnie, since I know she's a wedding planner. But like for caterers and people that are in businesses with variable costs, yes, you just need to make sure that that is outlined in the agreement, that is dependent on the cost of goods at the time of purchase. You can give estimates sometimes, but obviously there are some things that you will still have to buffer in there, and then send an approved, especially once it's time for purchase, you send an approved list of goods or whatever it is that, what like an approved menu, for instance, or anything like that. Mm-hmm. For instance, in the catering agreement that we are currently drafting, that's something that's included as well, because I think for them, you have to be clear that it is, it's a variable thing. It's something that could change depending on the amount of people, the choice of menu, and anything like that. And so it's goods and materials are directly related to the product that's given, and you can only give an estimate, but you might need to update that price and send for approval. So you do create that buffer. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, for those people in those kind of groups where raw goods or like raw products of any form are sunk costs by the day of performance, you should also maybe list a minimum order or minimum rate, especially if they're going to downsize. Mm-hmm. And let them know that a certain amount of money is non-refundable, and that this amount of money, like if you decide to scale down, like for instance, if somebody goes down from a 200-person wedding to a 20-person table, there should be a minimum fee as to how much you're going to pay, so that you can then refund whatever is left if that's the case. Because this is one of people in this industry, in an industry that is dependent like that, like for instance, catering, flowers, like for instance, like because those things are dependent on the amount of people that are there, it's really important that you establish what the minimum order is going to be, or the minimum amount of money is going to be, and what is completely non-refundable, and how much is left to a variable and is subject to approval and change of the final fee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm with it. I just had to go ahead and ask that question, because I mean, I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. You know, a lot of times people will just, a lot of times people will price like, this is what a tall centerpiece costs, which is great. But you know, I can only imagine right now. Like I just said, literally, I went from an early 2022 to early 2020 to December 2022 wedding, and. Yeah, thankfully, those were reasonable clients. So they knew that you know, the cost of flowers and food will probably change, but some people don't think that way, and you know, so I was just wondering. I think that's
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you should have it in your contract anyway, that even with a postponement, I think it's really important that you establish that subject to materials, like any material changes, and also the cost of goods and materials, because it's also really important. Like I feel like you don't want to leave anything. You shouldn't be the one harboring the cost for a rescheduling. Mm-hmm. It's not right. And you should also have something there that says that you are not liable for any how this change impacts what is given, or impacts the vendors or the quality of the event anymore. Because now if we're changing it, like for instance, moving into a different venue, or we're moving it based on something, and then maybe not all the vendors you originally chose were available, then there's also that impact as well. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's something to consider.
Right.
Hi, Rera.
Hello, Rera.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
So please tell us who you are, and what your business is, even though we know, and then, yeah.
All right, I'm Rera. I am a chef / caterer in the DMV area. What else do I have to say? I think that's good, right? That's good. Right.
The name of your business.
But
the name of her business is Chops by Rera.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the name of my business is Chops by Rera.
There you go.
And once again, I'm based in the DMV. All right. So my question is about this. I'm one of the unlucky people who happen to not have a postponement clause in my old contract. Actually, as we were going on, as you guys were speaking about the postponement, I was actually texting my lawyer, like, we need to add this, we need to add this, we need to add this. But I'm in a situation where I have a client. They already paid a deposit. And I'm not going to lie to you. The cost of beef tripled during COVID. It literally tripled. Wow. So now I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because this amount of money that you've actually even paid me as a deposit, you're meat, and they ordered a lot of meat. The price has to go up, but they don't understand, or they just choose to not understand and are like, well, there's nothing we can do. This is the price. Our wedding is next July. We still expect the same amount of things for the same amount of money that we had agreed upon. How exactly am I supposed to
deal with that? Or because, like I said, I did not have a postponement clause, so I did not have a changing cost and whatnot kind of clause in it.
So, wow. First of all, I just realized I have to say it now. I am an attorney, but I'm obviously not, I'm not Rera's attorney, and none of us, apart from people that actually pay, some of my clients in the audience are my clients. So it's really important that you guys understand that this is just informational educate. I'm sure you've heard this so many times. At least I will hope you have, that this is just for informational purposes only. So please don't come at me or sue me. Thank you. Now, we have a call in a couple of hours, so you and I will discuss personally. But I think it really does depend on the terms of your agreement. I don't want to say that you're shit out of luck, because that's not nice. But you have to be very clear about, like, it really, really does depend on the terms of your agreement here, in terms of what you have said, in terms of any kind of flexibility, because that is what is going to determine whether or not you have quoted a fee for goods to be promised, or if it's one of those things where you say that it's just a code and will be updated based on availability at the point of meal selection or anything like that. Like I said, we'll just have to, it will be something where your attorney, or if, like, when you and I have our discussion, maybe we go through your agreement, because I think it's really, this is the part that's going to be very critical here, guys. Like, you have to be careful about if you're stating that something is a final price and a final offer in the sale of goods, especially when it comes to something like catering, where you're providing meals, and it's actually, it's a service, yes, but it's also a provision of a certain good. So it's something that needs to be reviewed, and like I said, it's a contract to contract basis. But you now find yourself in a unique situation where it's either also you may have to, like, decide whether or not you want to keep, like, if you and this client cannot come to a decision, you discuss whether or not you want to skip. You want to, maybe, like I said, we have to go through your contract and see whether or not you even have any other options. But, like, it could also be something where you decide whether or not this is worth taking on, if you're going to have to eat the cost, triple the amount for something that's going on, or providing alternatives and letting them know that there are alternatives in terms of the amount where their money would go a longer way. Because justifying that 3 times thing has to be something that's left as a provision or as an option inside your agreement. Otherwise, it's just really shocking. And then, especially based on what your promise is or what your contract says about final offers or final product list or final value, that could be a material change in your agreement.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunbi, for that, and thank you, Rara, for that question. Wow, yeah, it's this whole year has had me like, man, I really gotta tighten up my contracts, look at things, like, be specific.
Want to make sure that there's nothing that's left to discretion, or left to somebody else trying to fill that gap for you. That's the thing. A contract with a gap in them is a contract that can be filled by the client, and they will do it basically on their own terms. And that's something that you have to be very clear about. And also, maybe, like, it's for a lot of you that do proposals, I'm sure Rera does proposals too, in terms of the amount, letting them know that that's not the final price and it will be updated is also always a great idea, because that way then you can make the final price and let them know that this is not going to be possible, which is very, very, it could be the case in Rera's case once we read the agreement.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, I've definitely noticed, especially with hotels and certain other vendors, like, there's always a proposal before the contract, and I'm like, why are we going through like 7 steps, But yeah, that makes perfect sense as to why that's the case sometimes. Is it okay to say that the final price will be decided on X date, or do you just leave it open?
No, yeah, you can say, no, it's definitely, you should have a date that the final price would be, you would let them know about the final price. Usually, I know for some people, it's maybe 30 or 60 days out. Obviously, 30 days is a bit tight, but then maybe that's the date that the final payment is due. Or maybe that's the date when, the second or third in the payment schedule is due. Maybe the second payment usually.
Excellent. Okay, I love it. Thanks so much, Kunbi. Thanks.
I like how some of my friends in the audience are literally texting me right now, asking me for certain terms in their contract. So I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a little scary, talking about contractual stuff. But yeah, so I hear it. I hear everyone on that. Yeah, I mean, guys, we're gonna be going for another 24 minutes. So definitely, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We are talking about preparing and protecting your wedding business for 2021, which is in 2 days. 2021 is in 2 days. And lots of people have gotten engaged during the holidays, will be getting engaged on New Year's Eve, etc. And they'll be ready full force. We all know the deal. The first Monday of the new year, all the inquiries start coming in. People are ready to work. So we want to make sure that we're preparing as much as we can. If nothing else, at least preparing our minds for 2021. I have a question while I wait for people to raise their hands, which, yeah, it's a question that I've gotten before, but I know, I think we may have been in a room together yesterday, I don't remember, about something similar, but basically structuring your packages to actually make money, and what kind of boundaries you can put in place. So for myself, I know that this year a lot of people have worried about micro weddings, and I'm really big on not working so that people, just for the sake of the gram. I think a lot of times we undercharge in the wedding industry just so that people can see us out there working, but we're not actually making any money. We're not paying ourselves or anything. Hence why my program is all about profit, because I think a lot of wedding planners don't profit. But I'll share my thoughts, and I want to know if anyone else had any thoughts or questions about structuring your packages to actually make money, especially micro wedding packages. And not only just to make money, but just so that you don't feel like you're doing the same amount of work for less. So I'll just share my tip on that. For myself, I consider a micro wedding a wedding that's planned in 90 days or less. So in addition to the size, it's also the time frame, because I find that people are forced to be a little more decisive on a certain time frame. So again, for us, those are the micro weddings we take. That's also not the biggest part of my business model, so you don't have to go that route. But for us, for it to go within our micro wedding area, it's got to be an event that's under 50 people, planned in 90 days, so that generally once we design the event, we talk through things that's kind of the final idea. We're picking vendors, that's kind of it, and we're moving forward. Once it goes beyond that, we kind of go into our regular planning packages. And like I said earlier, I haven't really had many challenges with selling our regular planning packages. So I know I see a lot of people shifting almost entirely into oh yeah, I have this cheap micro wedding package, and so don't worry about the rest. I do think it's really important, in addition to us protecting our businesses, we want to still make money. That's the purpose of a business. Even if in the end, what I always say is, even if in the end you want to give it all away to charity, you still have to make the money first, right? So our business is not the charity. What you do with the money can be the charity later. So that was a thought. That's kind of the boundary that I put in place with the micro wedding packages. When someone's like, oh, I'm planning a micro wedding for 2022, I'm like, that's a wedding. That is a regular wedding. So let's talk about wedding planning. And I wasn't sure if anyone has any thoughts, questions in the audience about micro wedding packages. How's that been working for you? Is that something that you plan to continue with in 2021, or that you've done at all? Something you're even looking into? I just want to make sure we're answering everybody's questions specific to 2021. Okay, that sounds like a no. It doesn't sound like micro weddings is anyone's major point, so that's cool. I guess, Kunbi, I did have another question. Oh, actually, never mind. Someone is coming up to ask a question. All right. Hi, Courtney.
Hey, Shola, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm still getting the hang of this Clubhouse thing, so it's a little delayed.
It's a learning curve. It's a learning curve. I hear you.
But yeah, I'm actually, considering that kind of exact question right now, as I'm getting a lot of interest in micro weddings and trying to streamline the process as much as possible so that couples aren't getting that full custom planning experience that full planning clients would get. Mm-hmm. But that it's still really meaningful. It's still really beautiful. And like you said, profitable. So just kind of trying to balance all of those things currently. And I think what's going to work best for me is just getting that key group of vendors in place so that I can just go to them as needed, to really cut down on the amount of time that goes into planning.
Right. So it sounds like with you, with your micro wedding packages, because I didn't preface it. I am not selling like all inclusive micro wedding packages, but I know some people are. So I guess are you saying you're thinking of more of like, okay, for $7,000 you get this venue, this photographer for 2 hours, and this and that and the third.
So I actually did one of those this year, where everything was preset. You know, the venue was the venue, the photographer was the photographer. But I just didn't get a lot of interest in it. And I think it was because it lacked the customization that folks want for their wedding. So that's why I'm pivoting a bit more to having it feel like it's custom, but also still be super streamlined.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. I think for me, one thing I always tell people is that it's your business, so you can choose to do whatever you want. Like there are businesses who, and I mean, this isn't directly to you, but there are some businesses that are strictly wedding management, some that are strictly wedding planning. Some people are not doing micro weddings at all, etc. I know for myself, I've been seeing a lot of the packaged, a lot of the package like, oh, for $6,000 you can have all of these things, and in my mind, I'm like, so how much are you making as the planner? And I'm like, for me, it confuses me a little bit. So
I'm actually even curious. Sorry, Faisal. I had a question. Like, so with micro weddings, how are you guys contracting with the vendors? Like, who are the couples still contracting individually with the vendors?
It depends. So the way I do it, you are still hiring me as your micro wedding planner, and then we will pick your vendors because that's what I'm comfortable with. Because I already know where you're going with this. It's kind of sticky if I'm the one paying everybody else and everybody has contracts with me.
So you're the client.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing it where just come to me and then we have this bundle, right? And you pick either this or this, and depending what package you pick, like I'll pay out. And a lot of wedding planners do this where you pay the planner for everything, and then the planner pays the other vendors. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just that normally in that model, the planner is charging an extra like 20% on top of what everybody else is charging as like an admin fee, right? In addition to their own fee. So for me, I struggle with understanding how someone's making money with $6,000 for everything in the box while also having those admin fees on top. I'm sure it's working for people, but yeah, but that's some people's model. For myself, I haven't gone that route. I've gone the route you hire me, and then I'll put together we'll talk about what you want, and then it's like, okay, you're probably going to end up around 10K or whatever, 8K, whatever, for what you want, and this is what's included in it. But I have had people come to me and ask for an all-inclusive, with everybody included for this amount, and I just kind of told them I don't offer it, but you're going to end up in this range if you go with me. So it's been that's a tricky place that a lot of us as planners have been navigating. I don't know, Courtney, if you, for the one that you did you hire the vendors?
Yeah.
They were hired through you? Yeah.
Yeah, everyone was kind of treated as an independent contractor, through me.
Okay.
But I am curious, kind of what are some of the maybe legal pitfalls that could be associated with that?
Thank you. That's a great question because it's making my skin like tingle at the moment because I think it's a dangerous game to play because you expose yourself to liability because then you're the client, not the client. So like not the people getting married, not the people doing the event. You have now taken on that role. So if the client does not pay, you are liable. You are liable if something happens, depending on what the language is in your agreement, especially if you're contracting individually with these vendors, you then expose your liability if they F up on that day. You expose the liability if some damage happens to any of their products, because then you're, as far as law is concerned, you are the client and you're the one that has like contracted with these vendors, especially for instance, like if we have obviously COVID-19 is no longer a force majeure. We know that it's happening. It's no surprise to anyone anymore. But if we have another surprise, maybe an asteroid or something, like then you find yourself in that same liability because you, as far as for all intents and purposes, are the clients on that day, and the people that are attending have nothing to do with it.
And that's why I was saying the planners who subcontract, they charge an extra 20% on top of whatever, on average, on top of whatever the person gave you. So if a photographer says, oh yeah, I can shoot for 2 hours for $1,000, most planners will add $1,200 into their as part of the fee. And I've heard people say like, oh yeah, it's not fair, or I don't want to work through a planner because this and that. But it's like that fee is like, it's an admin fee, and it also covers, it's like you're putting yourself on the line instead of the client. And so that's why most people do that. But that's why I kept questioning, like, for some of the prices I've been seeing, I'm not sure if people are doing that. So I don't know if you're always making the money to that matches the liability. Obviously, the wedding that you mentioned has already passed, so we made it out. Nothing crazy happened, so I'm sure it went well. It's just something to consider, and that's kind of why I never went that route.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's something I would replicate, because the profit margin is much smaller, because that's what the expectation from the client is that this is a much more affordable event, but the person who's going to take the hit on that is the planner, profitability. So
yeah.
Well, thank you.
No problem. And I can't wait to chat with you more very soon.
I know. Me too.
Hi, Gabby.
Hey everyone, great chat so far. And actually, I'm glad I just saw Margot pop in too, and she is relevant to this. Surprise, Margot, I might invite you up on stage. But you guys were talking about micro wedding packages and such, and in the beginning part of the year, Margot and myself and 4 other planners in Los Angeles started a small wedding collective. And of course, with COVID, we were like, let's pivot, let's do this thing. And it was like one price for kind of a one-stop shop. And we were thinking, well, people want kind of this planned experience. We'll keep it just about a 2-hour experience where they get a ceremony and then a champagne toast, but no reception. And I think all of us got inquiries, but every single one had wanted to customize the package. And I know a lot of you were talking about that earlier. And it was really interesting because the reason we had 6 planners involved in this was because we each offered a very unique style, and we each teamed up with totally different vendors that we trusted in the Los Angeles market. And for some reason, there was always somebody who felt like they had to change or request something to be changed. So I'm curious, if you guys have seen that happen, if that was something you were getting a lot. And unfortunately, we never ended up being able to do any of them because the restrictions, kept going backwards in LA, that we really couldn't do anything.
Right. No, I would say, I mean, I didn't offer the all-inclusive packages, but I found that with certain micro weddings, I mean, I have had a couple weddings this year. It's so funny. What I tell everybody is that the events we did this year were not the events we had on the books on January 1st, 2020. They're all events that were booked this year, and all the events that were on the books for 2020 all moved to 2021, largely because I do a lot of multicultural and cross-cultural events, and our events are not small. And a lot of people really struggle with that 50-person guest count. So, and it's fine. I'm fine with that. But I think that for the people who'd been coming to me with micro weddings, those who booked, they booked because they wanted that custom experience. Like, they didn't want, and because I told them that I had experience in the past of planning weddings in a short time frame. I literally have planned a 2-day, 500-person event with a custom erected tent, like with a full flip, including the floor, like between the 2 days in 3 months. So your micro wedding of 50 people, we can definitely handle. And that kind of like gave people the confidence, like, let's move forward. And that was why they decided to go with me. I think that I think that the honest truth for me, what I find with anyone in general, especially like the thing that makes weddings so hard is that it's something that people haven't done before, is that a lot of times people don't really fully know what they want. So it's like, okay, I like this idea of this all-inclusive thing, but then now that I see it, I'm like, oh, I want to change this and that and this and that. They don't understand that all those changes like cost money, like, and it now makes it much harder, and it's not going to be the same, whatever, 10,000 for the micro wedding package. It's going to change it. And I don't know. I feel like this is an area that we're still kind of all navigating. It's something that for me, I kind of knew from the beginning I didn't want to do it, the collective. So I can't say I have the most experience with that. I don't know if Courtney, if you want to come back up and talk about if people wanted to customize the package that you had, and see if that would help with the conversation. But I do think that a lot of times, especially as you get closer to weddings, just in general, people change their minds. Like I've had clients like who are just like, I don't want to spend any money. I just want what the venue provides. And then like 6 weeks to the wedding, it's like we're gonna have sparklers, and we're gonna have a dance fog, and we're gonna have this, and we're gonna have that. So for me, I just found it hard to imagine a couple who would just move forward with something that's pre-made and just not make any changes, just because of human nature and what I've seen over and over again. I don't know, Courtney, if you had anything else to add to that.
Yeah, that was absolutely a challenge. People did not like the restrictions with guest counts, and we accommodated a change in the guest count. It was initially 25, and we booked them for 40 because at the time that was allowed. And then we know what happened in the tail end of this year, and everything closed back up, and they had to take the guest count back down. And then with some other requests, people were like, well, we had a photographer, could we use our photographer, or, can we use our friend who wants it to be an officiant? And it never, except for for the one couple we booked, it just didn't work comprehensively, because people did want to, swap something out or change something or add something. So that was the challenge there.
Yeah, it sounds like Gabby and Margot, it sounds like you guys actually did book people though. So for those but you just weren't able to move forward. So for those people that you booked, did they customize anything?
No, that's the thing. We got inquiries, but we never booked, right, Margot? Okay. I don't think anybody got any.
No, yeah, we had quite a few inquiries, but it was always kind of what Gabby was talking about. People who were like, I already have my photographer. Can I move forward with everyone else but your photographer? And I was like, I don't know about that. I also had kind of a separate issue, which was that the venue that I was partnered with about a month before we would have done them here in LA, just in that like weird golden period where we could have done the micro weddings, they actually called me up and said, we're on the brink of losing our venue. We have to take a long-term filming project, because they're a loft space in downtown Los Angeles. And they said, we're on the brink of losing our venue. We have to take a long-term filming project to stay afloat, so we can't partner with you anymore. And it's like, oh, like, what are you going to say? No, you can't do that? Of course, please, save your business. So then I had to like find another venue in the heart of it. I think that if I had done it in retrospect, what I was trying to accomplish was like a community aspect, right? We had 6 different planners involved. We had 40 different vendors involved. And I think if I was going to do it in retrospect, I might have kept that lower. I was trying to involve everyone. We were trying to, make it a real community thing. But I think by setting the packages and setting so many people and setting the venues and stuff, we kind of boxed ourselves into a little bit of a corner. But unfortunately, there's no way for me to go back now. I don't know how Gabby feels about that. I don't even know if I've even expressed that sentiment in our calls that we've had with the other planners, but yeah.
That's so funny, Margo. Yeah, for anybody else in here, normally we had like monthly calls with all 6 planners to kind of talk about next steps and how it's going. So yeah, we haven't really talked in a while about this, but yeah, I think earlier in the conversation here, some of you were talking like you don't offer that package where it includes all the other vendors because there's questions about, legality, how do we pay people and so on. And also the profit margin is lower. I mean, we were going to profit each about $2,000 in the sense as like the planner side. But that being said, our work was fairly minimal because it was a preset package for only 2 hours. So we were all kind of okay with that. But yeah, I think it came down to, because of COVID, everybody was going the micro wedding route, for those at least that wanted to have a wedding this year. And the only I guess the only control they had on these weddings, these micro weddings, would have been their vendor selection. So I don't know if it was kind of something where clients or couples felt like, I just want to at least be able to customize exactly how I want this wedding to happen, as opposed to a preset package, and feeling so restricted around COVID. That's just kind of my theory on it, but who knows? It could have been the same thing had we launched this in 2018, you know?
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in and say that here in Los Angeles, the ones that I saw that were the most successful, that appeared to be, really booking people and doing them, of the micro weddings, were the ones that were spearheaded by photographers. Because I think that the photographers took their existing clients and just kind of were more successful at pivoting them than maybe us planners were. That's just what I saw here in the LA market.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I just want to pause. We did say we're going to keep this to 90 minutes. I can stay on a little longer, but Kumbi's going to be leaving us in a few minutes. If anyone has any final legal questions, you can raise your hands. But I'm just going to kind of continue the conversation. Or Kumbi, if you have any parting words before you head out.
Contracts, guys, like, get your shit together. Like, I'm sorry, but no, 2021 we're doing, and my friend Candice loves to hear this, but we're doing concrete over cute. So please tidy up your contracts, tidy them up, plug those holes. Visit legallyset.com and get your templates, of course, because why not? And more than anything else, guys, like, don't go into 2021 with the same. I'm not a mindset coach in any way, but I really think it's better for you to stand there and defend your agreements. Like, if there's anything else beyond that, the last clause that I didn't mention and I wanted to mention is I have seen clients put in language about chargebacks and disputes. Like, if you find that you are getting that frequently or whatever, it's very important that you document that in your agreement and let them know that chargebacks and disputes will not be tolerated and will be subject to a certain fee if that happens. I think the more documentation you can get in 2020, in your 2021 agreements, the better for all of us. And you can obviously also grab the free amendment at freeamendment.com, so you can have that rescheduling amendment in place, because, guys, we need to legalize all our shit. Like, everything has to be clear and clean moving forward so that everybody can have a profitable 2021.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Faishala, for having me, of course.
I love it. Thank you, Kumbi. We will be in touch. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. All right.
So sorry, I hate to just jump and leave, but I have a call soon, so I just wanted to get ready because, clients.
No, I hear you. We're not going to be on for too much longer. I just want to make sure. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Awesome. An amazing discussion.
Yeah, it was so refreshing. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I guess going back to I didn't want to end that discussion so abruptly about the micro wedding packages and people not moving forward with it. I think for me, I see everything as an experiment, right? I think that people created those packages. It was an experiment for everybody to be able to hop in. I think with I think it comes down a little bit to understanding value, which is why I talk about that a lot, especially like in my programs. Like, how do you communicate the value of things? And I think that a lot of clients don't understand how much work goes into planning a wedding. They don't understand what a wedding normally costs. So when you say it's going to be all inclusive for whatever it is, $8,000, $6,000, they're like, but is that cheaper than if I had to do it myself? Like, people just can't. They need that comparison point. I think that may have been, one piece of it. And then also, for the weddings that I did this year, like, they're not having a bigger wedding or if they do, it's going to be like in 5 years. So people still want, I think that customization still is what certain people want. Anyone who's planning on spending more than, I don't know, $5,000 for like a backyard barbecue where someone just takes a picture of them, I think they do want that customization, because that's the wedding, right? And they may have a 5-year vow renewal. So I think that may have been part of it. I agree with you, though, that I think that, photographers were the winners when it came to the business of micro weddings. Absolutely. I think because people, saw beautiful images and they're like, okay, I just know I want at least nice pictures. I think florists in many cases as well. I think with the planning, it's kind of hard to take pictures of an organized event maybe, and that could have been part of it with some people. I don't know. Margot and Candace, if you wanted to hop back up and chat about that, we could talk about that more. But it's definitely interesting to kind of hear you guys' perspective on the micro weddings and the fact that maybe more people wanted more customization. I wasn't quite expecting that. I wasn't sure how that worked on the inside. I just knew that for me, I wasn't willing to, I needed a certain profit margin for me to kind of put that level of work in, especially after, because I understand what you're saying, that it wasn't that much of work, since you already had the vendors, but you did put in work to put together the collective in the first place. So yeah, I just wasn't really sure if I wanted to go that route. But I think it's awesome that you guys put it together, and who knows, people may still come, once LA opens back up. So
yeah, I mean, I have to be really honest. One of the reasons why I kind of move forward with that, if anyone wants to look it up, it's the Los Angeles smallweddings.com. So sorry, just Los Angeles smallweddings.com. And you can kind of see what we did with the 6 different planners. I'm going to be very honest and say that one of the reasons I started that was to distract myself, to have something to work on during a time when there was nothing else, when the only other thing to work on was angry clients. My clients aren't that angry, but they were all, angry is the wrong word, disappointed, taking my time, stuff like that. So I wanted to work on something new. I wanted to have an aspect of community, which is why it wasn't just me putting together a micro wedding package for myself and my company. It was, more of a community thing. And yeah, I hope that it is something that is able to move forward, maybe even, post-pandemic, not even with these restrictions, just, something additional to offer clients that may want that, because there were people who came to me that were like, I just want it to be done. I want it to be kind of pretty, and I want it to be over with. So hopefully we can move forward with that, but I'm satisfied with the connections that I made as a part of that project, the fact that it's there if I need it, the fact that it did me some mental good during a time when I got to be honest with you, not a lot was doing me mental good in business and weddings in, April, May, June of 2020. So I think that, it did a lot of good, and hopefully we can move forward. But I agree with your, assessment of like people see photographers and photos. One of the more, successful ones here was the photographer Kurt Boomer in Southern California. And he did like, these micro wedding packages on this like French provincial estate somewhere. I don't know. So it might have been part of that location, photographer, and then people just kind of went with it because it was a set package. So, but yeah, the photographers were a little bit more successful, I think, because it is hard to sell. It's hard to sell the value of planning. All planners know that much. So it's even harder to do in a micro weddings setting. And I think we felt that. But as Gabby mentioned, we didn't actually get that far with the trying to actually do it, because here in Los Angeles, the restrictions never really allowed us to do it. There was literally like a 1-month window where we could have done it in October, and then that was it. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds, I hear you on that. Okay. No, this has been an awesome discussion. Thanks so much, guys, for hanging on. Our goal was 90 minutes and we're at 94 minutes. So I think we did pretty good. I'm definitely going to continue hosting rooms on specific topics within the wedding industry. But again, please make sure, I just wanted to recap some of the things we talked about today. So the first thing is we talked about contracts, right? And protecting yourself in 2021. Every business should have a rescheduling clause. Everyone should have a cancellation agreement. So if someone cancels the date, you send out an agreement for cancellation. For those businesses that are providing products or providing physical, goods, you want to consider sending out estimates and then letting the clients know that there was going to be a final date when you send the final price, based off of, fluctuating cost of the goods that you need to create it, whether it be food or florals, etc. And also, Kunbi's recommendation is to always send a new contract whenever someone cancels or modifies an agreement, and letting them know that, additional fees can be assessed in the event that there are more reschedulings or changes. We talked about micro weddings. There are 2 routes to go with micro weddings. You can have a micro wedding package just for your business. You can also consider a collective. And we kind of talked about the pros and cons for each one. But those are things to consider as you're preparing your business for 2021. And we also talked about selling your regular packages and the fact that they're still selling. Like I said, I have, like I mentioned before, I have been selling my regular packages. Those have actually still been selling better than the micro wedding packages, and continue to just articulate your worth and find your ideal client, even in 2021, and especially as we prepare for 2022. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this discussion. Please make sure that you follow me because like I said, we'll be having more discussions, and make sure that you check out Kunbi on this app to find out more about Legally Set and get your contracts right for 2021. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining the conversation. This has been a whole lot of fun, and I can't wait to chat with you guys again in our next room. You guys enjoy your day. All right, so that was fun. So thanks to you guys for rocking with me. I'm so surprised that so many of you guys waited until the end. But yeah, so this is like, I gave you your inside scoop on what it looks like when I'm on Clubhouse. So you guys got to come on Clubhouse with me, even if you don't have the Clubhouse app. You can always listen in through the Facebook page. I'll continue streaming whenever I go live on Clubhouse, stream it to the page. But if you want to ask a question, you do have to join me on Clubhouse. So if you decide to get an invitation, if you have an Apple device, y'all already know I'm Team Droid. Okay, Faishola is Team Android. I have a Samsung, but I went out and bought an iPad so that I can get on Clubhouse. So yes, if you're feeling a little FOMO about Clubhouse, you can get an iPad to do that too. All right. So yeah, I would love to have you guys on the next one, and please stay tuned. Be safe, and I can't wait to see you guys in the new year. All right. Catch y'all later, and thanks for being part of my replay crew.